A full-scale Tyranid invasion is a horror beyond imagining. Billions of bioforms raining down upon a planet in endless waves. Yet the defense forces of the Imperium will not go down without a fight. They too can bring to bear not just millions of their own troops, but also the formidable might of Imperial industry. Claw and Chitin will be met by Commissar and Ceramite. In the opening hours of an invasion, these assets will be deployed with rapid efficiency to the front lines. Here, the humble guardsmen will prepare to meet the invaders. With the support of mechanized units, artillery bombardments, anti-air cover, a ray of hope still shines for their salvation. But the great Devourer is ever evolving. Soon, it will unleash fresh waves of Tyranid bioforms of ever-increasing number and complexity to wash upon the defenders on all fronts. In this episode, we shall dive into the front lines to experience the true size of this second wave of a Tyranid invasion.
So this series has been a massive, epic undertaking. It's costing us thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours of work, but I think it's really worth it, especially when you consider what we have in store in the future when it comes to hive cities, bio-titans, you name it. But to keep going, we truly need your support. And in this case, the best way to do that is by pausing the video here and checking out today's sponsor, Tacticus, where you can actually fight your own planetary invasions and where we actually got a lot of inspiration for this episode. Tacticus is a 40k mobile game that I've honestly become addicted to. You build squads and fight tactical, crunchy battles where things like abilities, positioning, line of sight, and elevation all matter. Level design, enemy types, and boss mechanics are all super well thought out and make for refreshing gameplay across the different modes, which include themed campaigns, wave-based onslaughts, guild raids, PvP arena fights, and tournaments. Now, the latest update to the game introduced guild wars where you and your friends will establish fortifications and assault enemy positions. The tiles that you're assaulting and reinforcing all matter in that they give buff to adjacent tiles, and it all makes a really nice and rich gameplay where your strategy and your coordination all truly matters. Now, as someone who has honestly gotten addicted to this game, over the last couple months, I've unlocked most of the characters and I've completed most of the campaigns. I can honestly report to you that you can get a lot of entertainment out of Warhammer 40k Tacticus without spending a single dollar on it. Unlike a ton of other games, I feel like Snowprint Studios has done a good job of respecting my time and my wallet, so I can strongly recommend Warhammer 40k Tacticus. And it would mean a lot and support the channel a lot if in these videos you can, pause it here, click the link in the description, or scan the QR code above to check out the game. And while you're at it, be sure to use the code INVICTAMAY for some awesome goodies from now until June 15th. Enjoy!
The scope and scale of a Tyranid invasion make such events impossible to truly capture. Yet in this series, we can nonetheless simulate the major phases of these cataclysms. As a review, the first stage is one of infiltration, whereby vanguard organisms gather information about and undermine a planet. Here, lictors will stalk high-value targets, leapers will hunt vulnerable prey, and gene stealers will grow cultist dens in the shadows. When the time is ready, the dinner bell is rung. As the Hive fleet approaches, it now triggers the second stage of isolation. Emanating from the billions of Tyranids is a vast shadow in the warp, which disrupts all warp-based travel and communication. What defenses yet lie between the invaders and their target will be swarmed. Having destroyed or simply bypassed these obstacles, the Hive fleet will now enter a planet's atmosphere. This marks the third stage of assault. Spores now rain down upon the world in all forms, from the tiny microbial variety meant to begin terraforming the environment to the multi-story drop pods set to unleash hordes of combat forms. Together, these will constitute one of the many waves set to overwhelm the planet. Let us now take a closer look at their operations. We can begin with assessing the strength of the defenders. Though this planet lies on the fringes of Imperial control, it is nonetheless a beneficiary of humanity's vast armed forces. As a result, millions of professional, levied, and volunteer troops can be counted upon to mount a defense. These have been divided into multiple army groups. Each Hive city and major strategic region has been assigned an army group, which numbers at least 1 million men and boasts tens of thousands of vehicles. This force is then further broken down into corps, which are posted across the territory's outposts, fortresses, and valuable assets. Covering an entire planetary invasion will be beyond the scope of our video. We shall therefore narrow our focus to the theatre of war centered on the young Hive city, Penitent Spire. Its army group corps have been split across 7 areas of command. Once more, an exhaustive review of each of these is impractical, and so we will further focus on the southeastern sector. Here has been deployed an Imperial Guard Corps, whose paper-strength roster includes the following units: 1 headquarters company of 400 soldiers, 25 chimeras, and 5 Leman Russ tanks, 1 line infantry regiment of 10,000 soldiers, 1 recon regiment of 2,000 soldiers and 100 sentinels, 2 armoured regiments of 52 Leman Russ tanks, 5 chimeras, 5 sentinels, and 350 soldiers, 3 artillery companies of 30 basilisks, 30 chimeras, and 240 soldiers, 4 anti-air companies of 24 flak turrets, 12 missile emplacements, 40 chimeras, and 250 soldiers, 4 squadrons of 6 Valkyries, and 6 support companies, each consisting of roughly 60 chimeras, 120 engineers, and 300 soldiers. In addition, we should include the recently formed Reserve Company, which consists of the cobbled-together remains of outpost survivors. Its strength is estimated at around 300 men for an effective attrition rate of 70% in just the first days of combat. In all, this amounts to roughly 18,000 soldiers, 645 chimeras, 110 Leman Russ tanks, 110 sentinels, 90 basilisks, 220 anti-air platforms, and 24 Valkyries. A paltry force compared to its equivalent within the inner planets, but a nonetheless appreciable roadblock for any invader. In terms of defenses, this corps occupies a network of fortifications which tightly control its sector. At the heart of it all lies the garrison fortress and its resident headquarters company. This stronghold is located atop a high ground position with a commanding view of its surroundings. Within lie a multitude of important facilities such as barracks, armories, landing pads, field generators, and administrative buildings. These are enclosed by an impressive bastion wall of reinforced ferrocrete and ceramite plating capable of withstanding heavy bombardment. The walls are studded with anti-air, anti-armor, and anti-infantry weaponry. All of this is granted yet further protection by a void shield which blankets the entire complex. Surrounding the fortress are additional rings of protection and supporting infrastructure. Key to the operation of this battle sector is a rail line system, which feeds a series of supply depots. Here, the 1st Armoured Regiment awaits as a strategic reserve, while the Valkyrie, artillery, and anti-air companies have set themselves up to provide overwatch for the entire corps. This is a representative view of a key supply depot located at the terminus of a rail line branch. It contains offloading equipment and storage facilities for both men and material. These are accompanied by air pads, with the entire perimeter featuring gun emplacements. Ever since the emergency mobilization orders were issued, trains have arrived at regular intervals for the rapid deployment of the Imperial Guard Corps' 10,000-man line regiment. Like clockwork, infantry squads pour out of cars with their combat gear at the ready. They will now transfer to awaiting chimeras of the support companies, which have been tasked with further dispersing the men to their stations on the front lines. Meanwhile, technicians and support crews tend to the 4 landing pads, which currently host a squadron of Valkyrie carrier gunships. Nearby fuel tanks ensure they are quickly topped off. At the same time, an arsenal of rockets, heavy bolter rounds, and other munitions are efficiently transferred from the depot storage to the awaiting ships. Within minutes, the crew is cleared for departure and will join their comrades in the skies. Around the edges of the depot, anti-air emplacements are completing their warm-up procedures. Tech teams man the operating stations and resupply systems, while above, twin-linked autocannons cycle through their selection of available ammunition types and feed diagnostics back to the panels below. Nearby, the crews of the Basilisk units have also manned their stations. Sights are set, breaches cleared, and weapons loaded. The depot's defensive weaponry comes to life just in time to meet the warning klaxons heralding the approach of Tyranid assault waves. The anti-air crews unleash salvos into the distant clouds, targeting the drop pods which have entered the defense sector. Flak rounds burst across the sky, shredding or outright evaporating the ship-to-surface bioforms. A near-constant aerial barrage keeps the skies clear of enemy drop pods and flyers. The Basilisks, too, now join the chorus. Artillery bombardments obliterate any invaders which manage to slip past the aerial defenses and land in the Imperial Guard's backfield. This cover fire allows the Corps' outer defenses to focus on maintaining a perimeter. So long as the logistics system runs without interruption, the Tyranid hordes can be kept at arm's length. Returning to our map of the sector, we see how the various units of infantry and vehicles have been dispersed across the front. Much of it can be characterized by a long line of static defenses which follow a sweeping ridgeline. Here, the Corps has established multiple layers of minefields, barriers, trenches, machine gun nests, and tank revetments. From the ground, their overlapping fields of fire make for an imposing sight. Up close, the fortifications begin to reveal their wear from recent neglect, but are nonetheless formidable reminders of Imperial engineering's rugged resilience. These front lines are staffed by a large proportion of the Line Infantry Regiment and an entire armoured regiment. Fresh troops continue to filter in from the supply depots and are hurriedly shuffled forward to shore up the defences. These Imperial troops have been in near constant contact with Tyranid forces, which have washed upon their lines in increasingly large waves. For now, such assaults have been kept in check by the sheer volume of fire unleashed by the guardsmen. At times, the scale of enemy waves have nonetheless threatened to overwhelm the front lines. Yet the support of artillery and aerial strikes issuing forth from the rear have proved to be guardian angels, scattering any dangerous concentration of enemy forces as quickly as they arise. To the east, a winding gully shields the flank with naturally impassable terrain. The few bridges which allow access to the interior have been the focal points for a tug of war between the guardsmen and Tyranids on either bank. For now, the Imperial Guard engineers of the support companies have managed to rig the bridges to blow, destroying all but one. This has successfully managed to channel the waves of termagants into a killing field where companies of line infantry and detached artillery batteries hammer them on the approach. To the west, a more permeable flank exists in the form of a landscape pockmarked by waste effluvia and long-dead forests. It is a toxic place, even for Tyranid bioforms. Here, specially equipped walkers, snipers, and combat patrols of the Recon Regiment lie in wait. These work to efficiently pick off any invaders who manage to snake their way through the treacherous morass. With this review of the defenses in mind, let us now flip our perspective to that of the attacker. At this point, it has been but a few hours since the first wave of Tyranid drop pods began raining down upon the planet. Yet already the swarm has swept aside most outer defenses, allowing the invaders to establish beachheads around each Imperial army group. Now the swarm will begin consuming all undefended sources of biomass, from fields to greenhouses, animal pens, protein vats and settlements. This feast will help fuel the new spawning pools, which act as terrestrial factories that can begin spewing forth fresh bioforms. Together with reinforcements from the orbiting hive fleets, these second-wave forces will amass in huge numbers for the impending assault. Meanwhile, the remnant of the first wave will be sent into the meat grinder of Imperial Defenses. This serves several purposes. First, it will keep the front lines advancing away from the landing sites. Second, it will put the enemy on the defensive, fixing them in place. Third, it will drain the Imperial manpower and ammunition. And fourth, it will grant the hive mind valuable insight about the strengths and weaknesses of any positions which have not yet yielded. All of this will be achieved at the mere cost of expendable bioforms, which will already be nearing the end of their limited lifespans. What's more, their yet fresh corpses will ultimately be reabsorbed when the Tyranid waves eventually crest this Imperial speed bump. Such is the cold, unflinching efficiency of the Great Devourer. By the time the second wave assault has been prepared, its composition will have been finely tuned to counter whatever stratagem has thus far preserved the defenses of humanity. We can now review how this manifests across the various fronts of our Army Corps. The southern front resembles the multi-layered entrenchment of humanity's ancient First World War. Here, an open no-man's land has allowed the Imperial Guard forces to mow down waves of frontal assaults carried out by relatively low-tier troops. However, as in that bygone war, armored behemoths now prepare to rumble unflinchingly across the plains to shatter these static positions. These come in a variety of deadly forms. We can begin with a review of the Carnifex genus and its various subspecies. Such bioforms act as shock assault units. They are characterized by a hulking figure roughly 4 meters tall with a thick carapace that is impervious to most small arms fire. Though Carnifexes may take time for their muscles to accelerate them to full speed, this momentum becomes nigh unstoppable. Man and obstacle are crushed underfoot. In close quarters, the thornback subspecies features huge scything talons, which rip apart soldiers like paper and tanks like butter. Some may even be equipped with large versions of Tyranid bioweaponry, which grants them the ability to gun down any who may have evaded their charge. Another notable subspecies is the Screamer Killer. This apt name is derived from its ability to emit piercing shrieks which debilitate foes and foretell the discharge of deadly bioplasma blasts. First encountered by Imperial forces during boarding actions against Hive Fleet Behemoth, Screamer Killers proved to be extremely deadly close-quarter combatants. These line-breaker bioforms will now be unleashed by the hive mind on the southern front. Wading through swarms of Gaunts, their hulking size is all the more apparent. This fact is duly noted by the onlooking defenders. While some may feel their hearts tremble in fear, officers quickly shore up their morale, some even standing up out of the trenches in open defiance. With the companies thus steeled, the guardsmen fire everything at the behemoths. But the Carnifexes will gladly wade through this hailstorm. Their hulking figures serve as living shields for the hordes of Gaunts that now follow in their wake. Soon, this living tide crashes down upon the front line. Stalwart commissars are cut down where they stand, their men now fleeing to the rear. Some survivors desperately make a final stand, calling in bombardments atop their own positions in a bid to stop the enemy at all costs. But the hive mind has made its cold calculations. The momentum of the swarm presses ever onwards. Yet the further they delve into the Imperial lines, the more likely they are to encounter heavy weapons teams and tanks. The armoured regiment is especially well equipped for such encounters. Lehman Russ squadrons now pound the advancing Carnifexes. When shots find their mark, these tear vicious holes in chitinous plating, severing limbs and blasting apart body parts. Behind this cannonry, the Imperial Guard infantry units can regroup and catch their breath. But such reprieve is short-lived. Though the Tyranid second wave appears to be receding, it has served its role well. The distraction Carnifexes have drawn disproportionate amounts of attention and fire away from their lesser brethren, who have been able to efficiently mop up the troops in the front lines. This has in turn bought time for the spawning of fresh reinforcements bioengineered to crack the remaining Imperial Guard position. In a coordinated move, these now deploy across all fronts for a devastating third wave. Join us next time as we witness the unfolding of the hive mind's next move. For now, you can head on over to our Patreon and YouTube membership to get HD downloads of all our art, catch script previews, and participate in polls. A big thanks to the current members for supporting the channel and to the researchers, writers, and artists for making this episode possible. We couldn't have done it without this team and this community. We also have to shout out the folks at Texali Factory for supplying the awesome fortification models. They're a company that designs miniatures, terrain, bases, and other accessories for games which you can purchase to 3D print stunning products in your own home. We'll link them in the description below. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like and subscribe for more content and check out these other related videos. See you in the next one.